Ashley Robinson is the unsung hero of Jackson State. Tyrone Wheatley is back in the pros, and we have the 5 things that I'm most excited for in this year's HBCU Legacy Bowl. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me today, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. I appreciate it. And I want to tell you about Ashley Robinson because it's a chance that you just don't know who he is. And he is the unsung hero of Jackson State. I know a lot of people, when they think about Jackson State, specifically the football program, they think Deion Sanders. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's be very clear. There's nothing wrong with Deion Sanders. And this is not going to be a slight of Deion Sanders. Because listen, not only is prime, right? Not only is he one of the greatest NFL players of all time, Coach Sanders is also the coach. And the head football coach typically is the figurehead of a program, unless you have a player who is just this significant, this big star. For example, like Akil Glass would probably be the first name that you think of at Alabama A&M. But Deion Sanders is Deion Sanders, and it's going to be hard for any collegiate student to really measure up to the magnitude of who Deion Sanders is. Then secondly, you might think of the J-Hat when you think of Jackson State. You know, that's very popular. I think it's very symbolic. It's an easy and skillful a marketing trait. I like it. But that's two people or two things, one person, one thing that you think of before Ashley Robinson, if you even go there. And I don't blame you, because Robinson strikes me as a guy who those in the Jackson community, those who are Jackson State fans, they know, they respect, and they appreciate. But a guy's in an outsider, they might be looking like, who's this Ashley Robinson guy? You know, and listen, I know a lot of fan bases have that guy who's behind the scenes, who's doing a lot of stuff that you may not recognize if you're not a part of that fan base, you're not a part of that community. But at the same time, anybody inside that community will tell you that guy's super important. You just don't know. But that guy is super important. That's Ashley Robinson to me. And Jackson State they just worked out a deal to where those two will stay together. That's the university and Robinson will stay together until 2026. And I'm sitting there like, y'all sure y'all couldn't give him a lifetime contract? Y'all sure y'all couldn't just do whatever to make sure he never leaves Jackson? And I specifically left out the state university because he does so much for the city of Jackson. Like, we sit there and we talk about how the football team was able to generate $30 million in revenue for the Jackson economy. The mastermind, I'm sure it's a group effort, but part of those people is Ashley Robinson. He's part of the mastermind that helps that. He helps the school become more marketable. He's worked out partnerships with Nike, with Under Armour. He's worked out events with the city of Jackson. Yes, Deion Sanders came. I get it. And that's a big part of driving up, some numbers and some revenue. I get it. But also, you had to do a lot of work back there, because those partnerships, those working out those events, those are the things that generate a lot of money as well. Not just having attendance, not just putting butts in seats. That's huge and that's amazing. It's not just buying shirts at the game. Those things are great. But at the same time, you have to have these events. You put on events that have nothing to do with what's within those 60 minutes. These are things that Robinson has created. And that's why he got an award. And he got this award from visitjackson.com. It's the 2022 Tourism Visionary Award. And that's like their Walter Payton Man of the Year. Walter Payton, right? We just talking about great Jackson State players. But that was basically their Walter Payton Man of the Year. That was you did so much. This is their highest award. It might not be the most recognizable, but it's the highest award that this organization gives. And he was the recipient of it. So Like I said, he's kind of like the mastermind. He was able to work out deals and partnerships, both with these brands. I'm talking about endorsements, but then also just with the city and just understanding that, hey, we have to do things to generate and we have to create marketability. We have to do all of these things because it's not just winning. It's not just being good. That's not enough. I've seen good teams not have good buy-in. I've seen that happen. And Ashley Robinson is the reason that that's not happening to Jackson. Then another thing, and I think this might be his calling card, is he just has a knack for head coaches. And this isn't quite so much his greatest quality in Jackson, but when you look at who he is just as a professional and what he's done for years, you see that this is the calling card of him, and Jackson has benefited from it. But all of these things haven't happened in Jackson. But this is what I think might be his greatest quality. He just has a knack for finding head coaches. Coach Willie Simmons, coach of FAMU, called him the head coach whisperer. You know, a lot of people say quarterback whisperer because you're able to develop and you're able to find the right quarterbacks. Well, that's what he can do with your coaches. The three best teams in the SWAC this year: FAMU, Jackson State, Prairie View. Those are the three best teams in the SWAC. And every single one of them was hired or was head coached by a man that Ashley Robinson hired. He brought Dooley into PV. He brought Simmons into PV. And we all know that he brought Sanders into PV. And I thought a pretty cool story about Sanders that I'll share really quick before I keep making this point. They said the first conversation with Sanders took so long that that Robinson's phone battery almost died. That's how long they were on the phone. All because he saw Deion say one thing about coaching in an interview and said, I can go get him. And he went and got him. And that's how it happened. And I think that aggressiveness, that confidence, that belief in yourself, if that wasn't there for Robinson, we wouldn't be here today discussing Jackson State in the way that we are. But he brought in Willie Simmons, he brought Willie Simmons in the Prairie View. He left to go to FAMU. That was his dream job. Eric Dooley left Prairie View and went to Southern because that was his dream job. But all that is what it is. But to go from Simmons to Dooley, both of them had their first head coaching opportunity with them. None of these three men, Sanders, Dooley, or Simmons, had a head coaching opportunity prior to Ashley Robinson hiring him. He has a knack for finding these guys, taking offensive coordinators saying, hey, your offense was super successful at Grambling, or your offense was super successful at Alabama State, or you're Deion Sanders, and I know what you can do. Think about that. The immediate benefits that you saw from Jackson State this year from having Deion Sanders and basically his first real season outside of the quarantine year. That was just a weird year. But even if that was an adjustment time, in his second season, you saw how many strides they made. Just think about going forward. You just got Travis Hunter. You think more moves like this aren't happening for Jackson? I believe they are. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, you hire Sanders, Simmons, and Dooley. That's your calling card. Ashley Robinson does so much for the city of Jackson, and that shouldn't be overlooked. But what he'll be known for, what he should go down for, his legacy is, man, this dude has a knack for hiring some great head coaches. And I want to tell you about just Tyrone Wheatley, another head coach who's now going on to the professional level. He's going to be a running back coach for the Denver Broncos. But first, I want to tell you about Bet Online. And the football season is over, but I'm excited because, listen, there's so many other things to dive into. You have basketball season really roaring. We're about to go into the All-Star break, and I know they have some more props on that. You can discuss Ja Morant. You can discuss Steph Curry, Devin Booker. Kevin Durant should be coming back eventually. And all of these guys will have player props. So you can bet on their specific impact on the game, but then you could also bet on the game itself. And betonline.net has everything. And I know I'm discussing basketball, but they also have hockey, boxing, UFC. See if you want to wager on this UFC fights. You know, who thought Adesanya was going to finish it? Who thought he was going to go the distance? Who thought Whitaker could pull the upset? It happened, right? These are the type of things that you could bet on. And that's why I consider betonline.net the best in the business, because they even have favorite Vegas casino games of yours. They have everything that you could ask for. So BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, as we keep on rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, today's word of the day is slapdash. Slapdash means haphazard, slipshod, or sloppy. So thank you for making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And we're going to discuss Tyrone Wheatley moving on to Denver And this is exactly what the NFL had in mind when they started the Senior Bowl Minority Coaching Fellowship. So let's give a little bit of context, right? Let's give a little bit of a breakdown. And Tyrone Wheatley yesterday was officially, it was pretty much confirmed, but it was officially announced that Tyrone Wheatley will be the Denver Broncos running back head coach, or excuse me, running back coach. So this essentially filled out the Broncos offensive coaching staff, and they're switching over because they're moving on from Fangio. Now they got Nathaniel Hackett. A lot of people think they might be in the running for Aaron Rodgers. I don't think so, but this isn't that podcast. Go check out Locked On Broncos, and they'll give you everything that they feel about that hire. But going forward, I'm looking at what this could mean, and that's Tyrone Wheatley coming to Denver, because yesterday he was announced as the running back coach. About a week ago, he was in Mobile as a part of the Senior Bowl. He was part of the Senior Bowl Minority Coaching Fellowship, in which four coaches from the HBCU ranks were a part of the Senior Bowl operations. And I think this is exactly what the NFL was looking for when discussing fellowship. Their dream, their desire is to put more coaches from, or enhance or create a easier environment or easier pipeline, because I don't think they want exactly a pipeline. I don't think that was their intention. If it happens, it happens, and they might be happy about it. But I don't think that was their intention. But they wanted to create a way where more HBCU coaches were able to make it into the NFL ranks. And actually, I felt like Wheatley had a really good quote about that. And I want to say something, because he gave a quote while he was there. He said, "I thought it was a great opportunity. Like anything else in life, everyone wants exposure. Not so much want, but you need exposure." And he's dead on. You need exposure. We discuss this with athletes all the time being found, but we don't really think about it with coaches, or at least talk about it with coaches so much. But that's true. And that's what this was. This was an opportunity of exposure for four different coaches from the HBCU ranks. So this is exactly what they wanted. A week ago, he's in Mobile. This week, he's in Denver. He's a part of the coaching staff. And I don't think it's a handout. I'll tell you what I think happened. This is what I think happened. I think that Nathaniel Hackett, because he was hired, I think maybe a couple days before Senior Bowl week. I think he was hired when I was still in Mobile. So the HBCU Combine was that Saturday. I got there on like Thursday. So I think he was hired sometime in between there, if not maybe a couple days. But he was hired the week before the Senior Bowl at best. I don't think that this deal was in the works. I think that maybe he got there. He saw Wheatley. He was still trying to fill out his coaching staff. Maybe he was a little unsure. I'm sure he had his eyes on Wheatley a little bit, because this deal was in the works for him to become the head coach of the Broncos for a while. And I'm sure that he continued to look for coaching staffs or coaching staff members. And I think when he got there at the Senior Bowl, he saw Wheatley. He talked with Wheatley, and he saw that they lined up their vision for things and just the way he does things. Mind you, Wheatley is not a guy who has never been in the NFL before. So he has professional experience. That's what I would assume. I would assume that this deal went down post Senior Bowl, but everything that happened at the Senior Bowl made it to where, yes, I want to hire that guy. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. One thing that we do know is that Tyrone Wheatley is the running back coach for Denver. However it happened, he went from Morgan State to Denver. And they'll need a new head coach. And I think I am. I'm going to give some candidates. I'm going to give what I think should happen with that coaching spot tomorrow on tomorrow's episode. So stay tuned for that. I know I give the breakdowns at the end, but we're going to just I'm going to do it. All right. I'm going to do it. I'm going to impromptu just do it, because I just felt like that was cool to do. But when you look at Wheatley, one thing about him as opposed to everybody else there, and I've kept saying it, is that he has professional experience. But I think one thing that's unique about him is that he was in Buffalo, he was in Jacksonville, but now this time in Denver, he won't be under Doug Marrone. That's the biggest difference. Is he's always been connected to Marrone, and not in a sense where his legacy is connected to him, but those times he was in the NFL, Marrone was the head coach. Now it isn't. This is different. Somebody else saw something in him, and I love it. That's the dream. This guy just came from Morgan State. Now he's on the NFL landscape. And I think that another thing that I wanted to say is that another quote I want to give is one that he said. Wheatley again, there's a gap in generation, and a lot of issues on these teams happen when there's a generational gap of understanding and consideration. So as I said, when you open a door, it's like a breath of fresh air. Give men like Sachs That was Saxon from South Carolina State. A chance over here to come in and see and understand it. The thing is that the thing of it is, this is a group that goes from high school to college to pros, and this is a group setting. And I think sometimes the NFL separates themselves and doesn't open the door to let a little fresh air in or take advice of what's going on. And I think that gives a great example of, I was listening to this Marvin Lewis interview the other day, and he was just discussing just how college differs from the pros and how you have a greater understanding of how these kids operate. Maybe sometimes you're in a pro 15 years, you don't know what the 21-year-old kid needs to learn. You don't understand the different trends. So having a positional coach come from the HBCU or coming from a collegiate ranks, I think will be really good. And going from the collegiate ranks that's an HBCU, that's great for us. We love that. And I love hearing it. I love talking about it. And I hope that the Minority Coaching Fellowship continues to produce in that way. And this isn't just a one-off. That would be a dream. That's what we're looking forward to. And on this next segment, I'm going to tell you about 5 things in order, the top 5 things that I'm looking forward to when it comes to the HBCU Legacy Bowl. All right, as we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I have 5. That's right, 5, my favorite number. Big 5. I have 5 things. Can I get it one more time? I have 5 things that I am looking forward to in this year's HBCU Legacy Bowl. I feel like Booker T, you know what I'm saying? 5 times. All right, I'm excited. Anytime I get to talk about my love of the number 5, which is to a lot of people probably stupid, but to me, I love the number 5, so I don't really care. But I'm gonna give 5 things that I'm looking forward to. And number 5 is Ladarius Skelton, because he's being used in a multitude of ways, and I'm extremely interested. You see him at the HBCU Combine. He's throwing balls, so he's a quarterback, but then he's also running routes. And I told you, at first I thought he was just doing it just to give another target for quarterbacks to run or quarterbacks to throw to. But you look at it, nah, you running a little hard, buddy. Like, you're not running like you just going through the motions. You're running like you're trying to show somebody something. And he was, you know. Now at this event, the Legacy Bowl, I've heard in practice, he's running at running back. I said, Now, there's 2 ways this can go, 2 comparisons that I'll give. I think that he could go to Taysom Hill route, or he can go to Terrell Pryor route. I don't know which one he wants to do. I don't know which one coaches want him to do. But I think that with Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife, the do-it-all type of guy, because I really would not be shocked if Skelton even tried to take some snaps at tight end. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me at this point. I didn't think he was going to take snaps at running back, but he did. With Taysom Hill, it's the situation where you're still feeling like you can be quarterback or still play quarterback, or you can take snaps at quarterback. Not even just feeling. That last one is they're allowing you to take snaps at quarterback. I think that's the Taysom Hill. Quarterback, running back, slot receiver, tight end, H-back, whatever. Those type of things. I think that those bigger quarterbacks, those bigger athlete quarterbacks, I think that they could find a role. I remember Tommy Stevens got drafted, and he got drafted by the Saints, but then he went to the Panthers, and the idea was for him to be a Taysom Hill type player. And I think that that's something that Ladarius Skelton is showing himself capable of. I don't know if that's his intention to say, hey, I'm a Swiss Army knife, but it's definitely something that he's shown himself to be capable of, at least playing wide receiver and running back. But if the Terrell Pryor route is what he goes, that just means a complete positional change. So that's just different. But quarterback, running back, Swiss Army knife, just everything, while also taking snaps at quarterback occasionally. If that's what Ladarius Skelton is going for, I think he's doing a great job right now. So I can't wait to see how he performs in the game. 4. All right. So for number 4, I'm looking for the quarterbacks, and not just Skelton in this situation, but I'm looking to see who stands out, because Akil Glass is great, and he's toured up everywhere he's went, and he's really made impacts from what I hear. From what I hear, he's made impacts as far as his draft stock, and people are really interested. And I think that was good enough. Going into this HBCU Legacy Bowl, I think this will be a capper. He's not going to the Combine. He wasn't invited to the Combine. But his pro day is March 9th, I believe. I believe it's March 9th off the top of my head, but it's sometime in March. And then he'll do everything he needs to there. But this is the last event that he's going to be a part of. I'm sure he'll stand out. But I want to see if there's anybody else, everybody other than him, if there's any separation. Do any quarterbacks create separation? Unlike at the Senior Bowl, where it seemed like everybody just stayed here. They came here. For those who aren't listening, who aren't watching, they're just listening. I kind of have my hands clasped together just to say how tight they were. They came this tight, but they never really spread apart. There was no real separation within them. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. Who's going to step apart? Jawan Carter, Felix Harper. They were neck and neck at the HBCU combine. Let's see if they can separate themselves at the Legacy Bowl. Now, number three. Number three thing that I'm looking forward to is who's going to be the star? Who's going to be the star of the Senior Bowl? Because every year there's a star. And look, Akil Glass plays quarterback, top quarterback here, has toured up everywhere he's went. Would not shock me. Would not shock me. But if it is, there's going to be somebody else who's going to be the talk of the Legacy Bowl. I want to know who is going to be the talk of the Legacy Bowl. Who is going to be that star? It's probably might be somebody we don't even think about, right? Someone unexpected. But I love those things because when you have these events, you walk away with somebody being the talk of the town. And whoever it is, I can't wait to know who it is. Number two, it actually brings me number two, that guy who's unprecedented or unthought of. Number two, who's going to be my small school standout? And when I talk about this, it's weird because any other bowl that you go to, everybody here is a small school standout. Everybody is. But, there's a different hierarchy now. So Grambling would be a small school everywhere else. Akil Glass, Alabama A&M will be considered a small school standout if you went anywhere else. But this is an HBCU-centric event, right? Second one, HBCU Combine, now the HBCU Legacy Bowl. And this is an HBCU-centric event, so the hierarchy kind of has to change. I'm not about to sit here and consider FAMU a small school because on this level, they're not. So what I'll do is no SWAC members, when I'm talking about this, no SWAC members, no MEAC members, no Tennessee State, no North Carolina A&T, no Hampton. None of them. They're all D1. They're all FCS level, right? We're going to go D2, D3. And I got a couple of guys that I'm looking forward to. One, Shamar Bridges, and I've heard that he's looked good. And I've heard that everybody from Fayetteville State has looked good. Keyshawn James, that's one of the guys that I have on here. And also Elvin De La Rosa. These two guys have looked good, but specifically Keyshawn James, he's on my list. So Shamar Bridges, Keyshawn James. I'm really interested to see his diversity, how much they have him playing on the inside, on the outside, because he's kind of a tweener type weight. We'll see. I think he can play both, just at different levels. You probably have him. He's at 280. You might want to be a little bigger to play on the inside, but he can also be a guy who uses his quickness on the inside. But not too much of that because we're going to get into that in a second. But small school standouts. Who's that guy? And I don't mean lesser known. Let's be very clear. We're talking small school. The guy can be lesser known. You can be lesser known from Jackson State. I'm not talking about that. You have to be from a school that is smaller. You have to be from D2, D3 schools. So we will be looking to see who is our small school standouts. I have Shamar Bridges out of Fort Valley State. I have Keyshawn James out of Fayetteville State. And then also have Will Adams, who was just tearing it up in the combine. And everybody was talking about him out of Virginia State. So I'm excited. And then that brings me to I'm not going to put two fingers up. This has me to my number one thing. And that's one-on-ones. I love me a good one-on-one matchup. Specifically, I love the defensive line versus offensive line because this is where they get to shine. In the one-on-one between the linemen, it's a situation where more eyes are on them than I feel ever before. Yes, you have those guys who are eyeing the offensive line when everybody's doing what they're doing. But the most people are looking at the skill position. What are the wide receivers doing? What are the running backs doing? If the pressure happens, then you see the defensive line. But if it doesn't, whatever. If the quarterback gets the ball out fast, you're not going to see that the defensive tackle won that route real quick. You might not catch that the offensive tackle put the defensive end in the dirt and then jumped on him. You might not see that because you're not looking for it. But in these one-on-ones, there's nothing else to look for. Just the offensive line, just the defensive line. I love all the one-on-ones. Wide receiver, cornerback, that's great. Sometimes you even have tight end going against linebacker. Running backs might run routes out of the backfield against linebackers. Those are great, yes. But when you have the offensive lineman versus the defensive lineman, that aggressiveness, they go at each other like they never get this opportunity. Everything right there. Everybody's looking at them. There is no hiding. That's the beautiful thing about one-on-ones everywhere. There is no hiding. Everybody's going to see everything that you do. If you mess up, if you get dominated, we're going to see that. If you get clamped up, we're going to see that. If you get routed, we're going to see that. Trust it. That's the beautiful thing about one-on-ones, is that all of your deficiencies and all of your strengths are easily showcased. You get that one chance, make your opportunity count. Because I love the offensive line, I love the defensive line, I also love those wide receivers, I love those corners. I want to see everything that's happening. I need those one-on-ones. And actually, I will be retweeting some one-on-ones on my Twitter. So make sure you go check it out. I got it right here at South Exclusives. Make sure that you're checking that out. Matter of fact, this content right here, this excitement, I love the one-on-ones. These are the reasons that you need to continue making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. We're going to be discussing Morgan State's next head coach on tomorrow's episode, because I already talked my way into it. I talked my way into a corner, right? Now I have to do it, but I'm excited to do it because I already have an idea of who I want to be there. And then also, we're going to continue discussing the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So for your second listen of the day, make sure you're checking out Locked On Bets. Your boy Q and Lee Sterling giving you some expert analysis and insight to put some more money into your pocket. It's free game for big gains. It's really that simple. In the meantime, in between time, y'all know where y'all can find me on that blue app, that bird, yes, Twitter, at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.